Welcome to Not What I Thought. I'm Erika.
I'm Yolanda.
And I'm Becca. We're therapists, entrepreneurs, and perfectly imperfect humans.
We first met during a business owner retreat where we became fast friends because we're not afraid to be real and ask the hard questions about life. What we thought it would be like, how messy it actually is, and the courage it takes to create the life we want.
We continue to build our friendship and personal growth through our own retreats. We find the deepest connection in sharing our struggles and finding what we have in common rather than what divides us.
We're breaking down hard topics on our podcast and together have conversations about what it takes to find real talk, real support, and real rest for professional women. We're glad you're here. Join us on your favorite podcast platform.
So today, can we talk about exercise and how it's not what I thought it would be?
Say more.
So I grew up in the era of Jane Fonda and leg warmers and leotards and like Olivia Newton-John, let's get physical. And I would see my mom working out to the old VHS videos. It's very much about making your body look a certain way to fit into those little teeny tiny leotards and the little teeny tiny leg warmers and all of that kind of stuff.
I suspect there was a thigh master involved in here somewhere.
The thigh master steps, like the step aerobic like classes, right? Stepping up the platform and down and like I don't remember her doing any jazzercise or anything like that, but yeah, definitely those things. And so I think, into the early part of my life, I really thought that that's what exercise was all about. It was a way to force your body to look a certain way. And then that got even more complicated as I hit like my early 20s and started having all of these health issues, a lot of autoimmune conditions and chronic pain and like all kinds of things. So I could no longer do those things.
So like as a teen and young adult, were you engaging in exercise for that purpose of making your body look or trying to make it look a particular way?
That's what I knew. Like, yeah, I mean, I was like on the soccer team in high school and stuff. But even that, it was like, yeah, how do you look cute in the little uniforms and, and then going into college, how do you look cute walking across the quad? How do you make your body look like all those sorority girls' bodies? Mm-hmm. And it was very much like a restriction and a kind of a punishment kind of thing.
Yeah, because I'm wondering if you couldn't change whatever part you were trying to work on, your bones or something like that, right? Like, then what happened? Like, how did you feel?
I know. And see, I have like broad shoulders for a female, right? So it was, yeah, it was really interesting because people would always make comments about how I didn't look like I weighed the amount that I did. And that was confusing as well. And why was I having conversations with people about how much I weighed, right? That's part of it too.
I think I went a different way. Like I definitely was aware of those ideas about exercise and fitness, that it's about making your body look a particular way. And I took that and like rebelled against it. So because exercise is for people who are vain or exercise is for people who are overly concerned about their appearance. And I don't want to be one of them. And so I resisted any kind of regular exercise. But then I would sometimes go try. I remember in high school, a friend had the Tybo, again, VHS tapes. And so we would like do that in her basement and it felt fun and it felt good. But also I was like, didn't know quite how to, like where I fit, how to engage in this thing because I I knew my body was never going to look like and so I don't want to say that I don't want to present this as an entirely principled thing of like, well, I am better than that, because I think it was coming from a place of, I know my body's never going to look that way. And so why am I setting myself up for failure? And that maybe part of making me feel good about that was placing some judgment on people who did exercise, right? Because I'm not like that. Right?
Yeah, taking your own insecurity and
yeah,
releasing it. Yeah.
But I remember in college in the dorms, having some people on my floor who would like go out for a run, and do you want to go out for a run? And I'm like, why would you do that?
Yeah.
Running was way more serious than the step aerobics. That was too painful.
Yeah.
I mean, that's what athletes do. We're not necessarily looking for an athlete body. We're looking for a Jane Fonda. Denise Austin, I think, was another one.
Mm-hmm. So when did it start to shift for you, Yolanda?
Well, Erika, do you have a story about this before I share about how it shifted for me?
Sure. I don't think I resisted it maybe as much as Becca, but I definitely didn't quite know like how should this fit into my life. And I definitely had to like, those people are healthy and I'm not necessarily healthy. So like, how do you become healthy? But it felt overwhelming. I think that's a lot of what exercise felt like to me. Where do you start? And a lot of it I didn't like. So I would go to the gym with a girlfriend of mine. We'd be there for an hour. We do the machines and all the things, right? And she knew what she was doing. So I would just follow her. But like then it was just a chore, I didn't want to go. I didn't enjoy going. I didn't really feel that good afterwards. So, it was more like, okay, this is what I need to do, have to do to be healthy. But I didn't really lean into anything I enjoyed until much later. So I'm sure we'll talk about that. But
And I think adding the complexity of like being at a gym is just even a whole other conversation, right? Because I would go to gym for like the group aerobics classes, but I never went and like messed with the machines and stuff, because who knows how to do that. And females aren't supposed to be super muscular, so you don't do that, So, and then, kind of stereotypical gym culture that can be really uncomfortable when you don't.
I even think to it now. There was a rock climbing wall, and there was what's the game you play inside where you hit the ball against the wall and it's like open? Racquetball. They had racquetball courts. Those things I did enjoy doing, but I was like, well, that's not real exercise because it's not in the weight, but in the machines. So isn't that interesting?
Yeah. I think that for me, this whole idea of quote unquote exercise started shifting. So I was like a later to life, go back to school and grad school and like all of that. And I took a spirituality and social work class. And through an assignment for that class, I did some yoga. And then I was like, oh, wait a minute, this is very different. This is, it was spirituality, but it was also exercise. And then I got to try out things like Pilates, right? Because this is during the period of time where I was in an incredible amount of pain. It was hard to do, any of the stuff that I thought of as quote unquote exercise. So I started to explore with those things and get a different feeling for what exercise is and what it can feel like in my body, and a different purpose that it could serve. And over time, I've added a whole bunch of different things, not just yoga and Pilates, but, we were part of like all of that COVID population that joined Peloton. And so I've added Peloton, I've added some strength and, lifting some weights. And it's really interesting because each of the things that I do physically I think serves a slightly different purpose. So yes, it's to move and to be healthy and to handle stress. But it's also very much about connecting with others. Like one of my favorite things to do is to be with people that I care about and love on the trail, on the hiking trail. And that's one of the things that the three of us do when we have the opportunity to be together. So it's about relationship and connection, and it's about the spirituality of like being out in nature or in a yoga class, connecting more deeply with myself. It's about, doing a challenging bike ride and kind of being in the space mentally of like, oh, I didn't think that I would get through that, and I did. It's being in a space where I'm lifting heavier weights, going, oh my gosh, I am stronger than I could have imagined. So, that in a nutshell is what exercise, quote unquote, has come to be for me. I'm very fortunate now that all of my autoimmune stuff is fairly well, mitigated with medication and the activities that I do. And to be honest, with this midlife body, I'm looking for kind of what I need to have in place now to be able to live, not forever, but to be able to live well for the amount of time that I'm here.
Yeah, I love how you're looking into all the different areas, right? So I don't know, I think a lot of people connect it to the long-term goals of living longer, but then is that really enhancing your full life? Whereas you're kind of looking at it's the spiritual, mental, physical, like it's all around way to serve myself.
I think for me, I would almost prefer to switch the word exercise for movement.
Me too.
Yeah, because the exercise, I think I can't help but bring all of those connotations about the exercise classes, or an exercise program or whatever. And I know that things really shifted for me when I was in a coaching program, which is where we all met, that was very holistic in looking at not just what was happening in my business, but how my business and my life like intertwined and the things impacted each other, and making sure that I was actually having a whole good life. And through some feedback with my coach there, I was really able to build this connection of how much movement impacts my mood. That almost without fail, if I reported that I was not feeling great, or that my mood was kind of low, or that I was discouraged or whatever, it's like, well, how often did you move your body last week? Not at all. Oh, wow. Like there's this very strong connection for me, that like this is a way that I can help manage my mood, is through regular movement in my body. And, I've come to learn about the stress response cycle from Emily Nagoski's book on burnout, and how we have all of these stresses in our environment, and your body is like primed to do something with the stress. But the types of stresses that we encounter in our modern life aren't ones that necessarily require movement. And so we just sit in all of this like pent up, ever increasing stress that's being held in the body, right? And it's the movement that helps to like release that and bring you back to baseline. And so for me, it doesn't really matter if it's yoga or a hike or a run or a bike ride or whatever. It's like some kind of movement that I need to help me reset. And it's been hard sometimes to really believe and embrace that.
What part?
What part? I think that I don't face this as much anymore, but I think at the beginning I had to work through, if I'm going to yoga on a regular basis, or if I run, whatever, I'm training for a half marathon or something. Does that mean I get to call myself a runner? I don't think that I'm a runner. I'm not an athlete. That's not right. Like I kind of resisted a lot of that. Or if I go to yoga on a regular basis, does that mean that I'm one of those people who are vain about their body? Right. Like I had to confront all of the judgments that I had been placing on other people now that I'm engaging in this activities for myself, or having people give me feedback about how my body was looking. Oh, it looks like you've lost weight. I mean, oh, that's like, thanks, but that's not why I'm doing this. And sometimes it feels nice to get that praise. And also, but I don't want this to turn into a thing that's why I'm doing it. And I think there's another part of like, that was hard for me. Another part of it was around maybe feeling like I deserved to feel good. So, okay, you found this thing that improves your mood, and you know that if you feel crappy, you could go do a hard ride on the bike and you'll feel better. But do I really get to do that? And so I think there was some worthiness stuff that I had to work through as well.
Did you do that?
How did I do it? I think that what helped the most was just doing it.
Mhm.
Like not letting myself get stuck in what does this make me and what do other people think of me and whatever, and come back to, but I feel better and I'm allowed to feel good. And there was a period of time where if I didn't do yoga at least once a week, I would have a migraine. Just the way that my body was holding all of its stress, like I had to do that. And for that period of my life, it wasn't any other exercise. It was like the ways that my body held stuff in my hips and in my neck, and like it had to be yoga. And I had thought that it was clients, and like this is the stress because I'm a therapist and I'm dealing with other people's problems, and like my body is holding on to it. And then I found out after separating from my spouse and moving that it wasn't clients and it was the marriage. But I just didn't know that at the time, that there was this kind of low level constant stress that my body was holding on to. And if I didn't address it, that it would manifest in this way that's like, okay, well, now you have to look at it. Right. So if I'm not taking care of my body and allowing this release of stress, it will build up and then I'll have a headache and then I can't ignore it anymore.
Body keeps the score.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Bodies are so wise.
Right, right. And then I found almost immediately after not living with my former spouse anymore, I was like, oh, I still was seeing the same amount of clients. All this other stuff was the same, but that kind of level of stress in my body just dissipated. And that's not the topic of this podcast, but that was pretty eye-opening to me. I just hadn't realized how much it was impacting me physically.
It does, the exercise does allow you, or the movement to have a different kind of relationship with your body. It is, for me, it's a form of mindfulness. How has your relationship with movement and exercise changed, maybe?
Right. Yeah, I love it now, but I feel like I didn't have a good relationship with it. I was another Peloton, COVID, desperate to get your bike in your house as soon as you could type of person. And our main goal when the bike came in was that we don't want this to be the most expensive coat rack in the world, right? So like we wanted to use it. If it was going to be in our house, we needed to use it. And so we did my husband and I did a challenge. We would just ride some type of ride for every day, like usually 20-minute rides as we were getting used to it. And I think doing that helped me, I had to engage in it actively, I guess, but helped me be more curious, I think, about exercise and what that could look like, or movement and the type of movement that I really liked versus, they have all these different types of classes, right? So in these programs, and I guess back to Becca's programs, but, all these different formats that you could do. And I know sometimes I struggle with, I don't know, this is like the hardest program, or this is what Yolanda and Shaman are doing, so maybe that's what I should do, or this one's the best for this. And I think over these last couple of years, I've been able to say, actually, you know what, I need to do what I need to do, what I enjoy doing, what feels good in my body. And it doesn't really matter what the other people are doing, or what the other goals of that may be. Like, that's not important, And I think that was my light bulb moment of like, it's okay to do what feels good for you and only you, and try new things. I think that's what I didn't do before. I was just overwhelmed with like, well, yeah, do you do the jazzercise? You do the Pilates, the this one, the that one, the studio over here, the gym over here. I mean, there's just so many options, which I think is actually fantastic. But I never like connected in with anything. And so then it just became overwhelming. And then it's just like, okay, well, where can I go to, I guess, meet the goals that I wanted to meet, right? Which probably back in the day was more around like what my body looked like than I would say now.
I'll say another thing that surprised me was before I engaged in movement or exercise on a regular basis, I think part of what kept me back was I expected that there would be a lot of judgment in those spaces, like that I would show up and feel bad that I couldn't run as fast, that I was the weak link on the team, that I couldn't do the poses correctly or whatever the thing was. And that absolutely has not proved to be the case for me personally. Like I was shocked over and over again to like feel like I built up all of my courage to show up into this space and be vulnerable, and was just so surprised to find that, at least in my experience, the spaces that I was choosing were so welcoming and encouraging, and like, you do your personal best and you are however you are on that day, and it's okay if it's not as fast or as flexible or as strong as the day before. And like all of that stuff was a complete surprise to me because I had no idea. I expected a lot of judgment, and it just hasn't been the case.
I also think knowing that if you happen to be in a place where you do experience that judgment, that there are other places that's not what the experience is.
I think I'll say I tend to move into judging myself. So you hear people talk about like a runner's high. And then if I tried that and never got it, at the end, and then I'm like, okay, but what am I doing wrong? There's something wrong with me, or I didn't do it right because everybody else seems to like this, but like it's not happening for me. So yeah, just kind of getting out of all those judgments, right? And just back into ourselves.
I was actually thinking that, Erika, I don't wear my glasses when I'm blind as a bat, and I do not wear my glasses when I take a yoga class or pretty much do any kind of movement aside from like hiking or paddleboarding, because I have to see where I'm going there. But in other formats, it's just I get too sweaty. I'm just such a sweater. And early on, it was like take my glasses off so that I don't judge myself and like the yoga poses and that kind of thing. And it's just exercise has been a great practice for me of self-compassion. Given my early experience about exercise and being a woman, I really thought that exercise was about shrinking myself, about it being kind of a punishment for what I had eaten, a way to make myself smaller. And by doing that, make myself more lovable, more acceptable. That's what I used to think exercise was.
And what does your heart know to be true about movement now?
What my heart knows to be true about movement now is that piece that I touched on. So for me, movement is kind of that long-term piece of like, I want to have quality in my life for the amount of time that I'm living it. It is about connecting with myself and others, about reminding myself that I can do hard things, that I'm stronger than I think that I am. As someone with chronic health conditions, exercise is a practice of gratitude for me. And I mentioned that self-compassion, like it's a practice of both like yin and yang compassion, where I can use this movement and allow it to be nurturing to me in those times and spaces that I need it to be nurturing. And then I can also kind of use the others, the kind of the fierce self-compassion of like, yeah, you can do this, you got this. You do hard things. So it's a much different experience for me than in a certain size jeans. How about you, Becca? What does your heart know to be true?
My heart knows that it's okay for me to feel good and that I deserve to take the time to do things that help me feel calm and alive and relaxed and energized. And then that can be what it means to me, separate from whatever perceived judgments that other people might put on to why I do the thing. What about you, Erika?
My heart knows that moving my body and learning how to be mindful about how my own body feels and being curious about trying new and different things to see what the effects truly are for me. That's one of the best ways that I can love myself.
I love that for you.
But I hear that common theme among all of each of us, like exercise is a way for me to love myself.
Yeah.
And feel good in my body.
And there's this little part of me that wants to be like, yes, and it's not about loving the way that I look for all of us, right? It's about there's this physiological stuff that happens that I feel good. This is how I love myself, in taking care of myself, in practicing gratitude for what I have, in like knowing that I can be curious and playful and find what works for me. And like none of that has to do with appearance or body shape or size or anything.
And also, just a side caveat, sometimes the exercise or the movement doesn't feel good in the moment. I think it's important.
True.
And that's the fierce self-compassion that I'm talking about. Sometimes the best way of loving yourself is to challenge yourself. And
Yeah.
sometimes necessarily look or feel good, not as a way of punishment.
Right. Right. Yeah. Or in my case, I wouldn't say when I first started the journey that I always loved going to yoga, but I liked doing that more than I liked having a migraine.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Yeah. You take a step and the path unfolds in front of you. Yeah.
Yeah.
Love y'all.
I love you too.
Thanks for hiking with me.
Yay! Let's go hiking.